Warning, the Renegade Recruiter is not for the soft, timid, or faint-hearted. If you need permission or seek approval from your mother, spouse, mates in the pub, or anyone else for that matter, this really isn't for you. If any of what you've heard puts you off in the slightest, I advise you not to listen any further. You've been warned. Prepare yourself for the no bullshit, zero fluff. Quick, dirty, and uncensored secrets for any serious recruitment, staffing, and search business owner who wants to earn more money with less work and fewer headaches, without having to kiss ass or bend over backwards to please anyone. He's a relentless and fearless renegade who will stop at nothing to reveal the harsh, unforgiving, and brutal truth about what it really takes to succeed in this business. He's a guy people love to hate and hate to love. It's your host, Terry Edwards. The Renegade Recruiter is unleashed.
Hello. This is Terry Edwards, Renegade Recruiter, and welcome to another episode of Renegade Recruiter Unleashed. And of course, we're joined by Drew. How are you, Drew?
I'm good, thank you, Terry. How are you?
I'm really good indeed. And today our guest is Stacey Brown Randall. Stacey, thank you very much for joining us. How are you?
I'm great. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, let's get into it, as they say.
Stacey, for anyone who doesn't know of you, doesn't know who you are, can you give us the brief intro to who you are and what you do now?
Sure, yes. So I help mostly solopreneurs and micro small business owners make more money and find more time. So my background is helping business owners make sure that they're running their company well. So effectively, I'm a business coach, but I also have a certification in productivity coaching as well. So I do a lot on the productivity side with my clients.
That must come across as, that must be a real godsend for any small business owner, because that's always a major challenge, isn't it? Lack of time.
It is. We all have the same, what I like to say, 1,440 minutes in a day, and how we use them effectively is very important.
Absolutely, yeah. We use a similar quote. We say, what's it, 86,400 seconds in a day?
Yes.
But yeah, similar thing. So can you kind of give us an overview of the sort of service that you provide, please, Stacey?
Sure. So with the coaching practice that I have, there's two parts to my business. I do some corporate training, but mostly the majority of my business is on coaching clients and really helping them understand how to make their business run better, how to make it work better. And an area of focus that I have with my clients is on the sales and marketing side, specifically helping my clients develop a business that is built and sustained by referrals. And that's one of my areas of expertise, in addition to helping them build sticky client relationships. So I work with, I can work with the coach that is just trying to get to their first six-figure mark, and I can work with the coach or another business owner, that's trying to, get to the $5 million mark. So it just kind of depends what their needs are. But the majority of my clients come to me because they want to make more money. They want their business to have more revenue, more profit. And at the same time, they want to also make sure that they are having enough time for life and the things that actually matter outside of work.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a problem for a lot of entrepreneurs and solopreneurs is having enough time for those other things other than work.
It is. I would say 60% of my clients are actually, if they're owning a business, and they are parents. They're working parents as well. So there is that. And I have 3 children myself, so I definitely walk in those shoes every day. And it's definitely doable. You can definitely be successful. That's not the issue. It's just figuring out the right blueprint and the right path to follow that works for my clients.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Stacey, tell us a bit more about your background. How did you come to do what you do now?
So I like to say, I had someone tell me this recently, that when you look at my background, it's a portfolio career. So I have done a number of different things, kind of that portfolio model. I haven't followed one path. My first job when I graduated from undergrad, I was working for a lobbying firm. And then I moved into working for our local Chamber of Commerce. I did that for a number of years, and I, obviously my background, so it's been in, sales and marketing, and then also some volunteer experience as well, a little bit on the political side. But really, I would say for the last number of years, obviously having this this coaching practice, prior to that, I actually owned another business, and that was an HR consulting firm. And I tell folks, one of my most powerful business credentials is that business failed. And going through that process of what I learned really set me up for success with this coaching practice that I have now, this business that I have now. And so, if you kind of look at my background, obviously I was a broadcast journalism major, and then my master's is in organizational communication, and I've worked for different companies in the sales and marketing side. And then I had this piece of this HR background as well. I did workforce development here in Charlotte, and then got into generational consulting and built a business around that. And that business unfortunately didn't last. I had to go back to corporate America. I actually was a chief talent officer for a company for a little bit, and then I had a second chance to go back out on my own. So that's the practice that I'm currently in now for the last couple of years. So I like to say it's a portfolio career. It kind of went in different places, but everything I've done, I recognize now, completely informs the work that I get to do with my clients.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said there about experiencing that failure and how that's stood you in good stead. You probably well know, Stacey, there's a lot of famous people such as Walt Disney who failed. Thomas Edison, I think he failed like 10,000 times when he's trying to invent the light bulb. Fred Smith of FedEx is another famous one. Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey. Stacey, you're in very good company.
I like to think so as well. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you shouldn't call it a failure. I'm like, let's just call a spade a spade. It is what it is. The business ended, and I learned so much from it. I call my 3 secrets learned from business failure. And I'm really happy. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was painful going through it. And while a business failure is financially painful and it is emotionally painful, at the end of the day, the biggest pain point is on your ego. Yeah. So it was definitely something that I wouldn't wish on anyone else. I think it's one of the reasons why I coach people to be successful with their businesses, because I don't want anyone to go through it. But I wouldn't change it for the world, because to your point, Terry, you're right. It is, I am in a good company, and it has been a great experience that I was willing to learn from.
Yeah. And, I've encountered the same challenges as you, Stacey, in earlier businesses as well. And what you said there about the ego, that's the main part, isn't it? It is more about your ego than anything else that takes a bit of a knock.
It does. It's the one thing, that ego is the one thing that'll keep you from getting out of bed in the morning. So you have to keep it in check.
Yeah.
Stacey, I do want to sort of find out more about your previous business and how it failed and why it failed. But before we get into that, can you tell us something about you that most people don't know? So maybe an interesting or funny fact?
Yes. Actually, it's funny. I was thinking about, I obviously listen to y'all's podcast, so I've heard them before. And so I was thinking about this question, and usually I use something from my past. And I was having this conversation with my husband, and he was like, something that's really cool that you don't ever talk about that's recent is that we have a little league. Obviously, most cities have a little league groups for kids who play baseball.
Yeah.
And softball. Of course, we have that here in Charlotte. And I coached my daughter's t-ball team, which now a mom being a coach of a t-ball team is not new. That's not unusual. But in the history of our little league, system for where we play, I actually coached the first all-girls t-ball team.
Oh, wow.
Excellent.
Yeah. It was really fun. I had a lot of 4, 5, and 6-year-old little girls running around, trying to remind them to stand up and not play in the grass in the outfield, and to keep their glove on their hand so that they could actually get the ball. So it was my first coaching experience. It was a lot of fun. Definitely an exercise in patience.
Is that stood you in good stead when it comes to coaching clients?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Stacey, what is T-ball? I've literally never heard of it.
Oh, okay. So so kids play baseball, right? They start out with machine pitch baseball, and then they move into kid pitch, and then they just move up to like middle school and high school teams, and then obviously moving on if they're good. Well, to get kids started, the very first league that we have here in the United States is actually a T-ball league. And so literally the kids are 4, 5, and 6, and they hit off of a baseball tee. That's where the name comes from, T-ball.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. As you know, Stacey, over in the UK, we the nearest thing to that we've got is cricket, and don't try and get me to explain that to you here, because we're here all day. Excellent.
So, Stacey, I mean, you mentioned previously that you previously had a business that failed. Can you tell me more about that? What actually happened in that business? Where did things go wrong?
Yes, I would be happy to. I love talking about this because I think that's how people learn. Should definitely learn from other people's mistakes. So that business was an HR consulting firm. My two areas of expertise were generational diversity, so talking about the baby boomers, the Xers, the millennials, Gen Z, and then also employee engagement. So I would tell folks when they asked about, HR consulting, I'd be like, don't ask me about the law, because whatever advice I give you, I'll probably get you in trouble from a legal perspective. And I didn't do anything really with like comp and benefits. It was very specialized HR consulting firm focused on just those two topics. So I would travel around to conferences and work with companies on their generational knowledge and their leveraging the different generations in their workforce. And then I would also do employee engagement. I would do a lot of employee engagement surveys. And so, I spent a lot of time reflecting back on this business, because in reality, if you looked at my business, and that business was called Randall Research, and if you looked at that business from the outside in, you would have said it's really successful. You have clients like KPMG, like one of the largest Big Four accounting firms, and BDO, which is another large accounting firm, and Coca-Cola Bottling, which is one of the largest Coca-Cola bottlers in our market. Their headquarters are here in Charlotte, and I worked for the city of Charlotte. And if you looked at the clients that I had, you'd be like, how did you fail? Like, what was wrong with you? And so what I really kind of distilled it all down to and kind of boiled it down to was there were three things I didn't do well in my business. Because I had, in my first client that I ever had was, almost a six-figure contract. And that just built the business from there. So when I look back, and I did a lot of soul searching after I kind of licked my wounds and was like, okay, this is official. This is going to go on my resume. This is what has happened to me. I now have a job. And I spent time paying attention to what I did wrong. I came up with three what I like to call my secrets. My secrets learned from business failure. And they're not secrets because I don't share them. I share them willingly with anybody who wants to hear them. But they really were. My first one was I didn't touch business development every day. The second was I didn't protect my mindset. I wasn't emotionally bulletproof. And the third one was that I wasn't paying attention to when my business needed to scale. And so as a solopreneur, which is how I like to run my businesses, I have an army of contractors, but I like to just be a solopreneur. You've got to be paying attention to your ability to scale up. And if you have that conversation and try to figure out what it looks like to pivot or scale up when it's too late, it's almost impossible, because you're just swimming upstream and you're just now treading water. So those were really my three secrets: is touching business development every day, protecting your mindset, and then, of course, the ability to pivot and scale when necessary.
Wow. I've got to say, Stacey, I think they're absolute gems, that, we could kind of cover all day. But I do want to go on to this a bit more, because I think this is really important, and every business owner can learn from this. Those three gems there. The first one, not doing business development every day. I think every business owner, I can't imagine any business that doesn't do this. They have a ton of business, and because they've got a ton of business, they're not doing the business development, because there's almost this thing: I don't have time to do business development because I've got to deliver on the business I've actually. That's so common. Could you just expand a bit more on that, please, Stacey?
Sure. No, and you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, that truly is the problem, right? Specifically for smaller businesses where it's just them, or they just have a couple of employees. And that doesn't matter if they're hundreds of $1,000 businesses or multi-million-dollar businesses. It's the same issue. They've got the business coming in. They did a lot of business development in the beginning. They've got the business coming in. They get busy doing the work. And then they look up and the work ends and they're like, oh, wait, there's nothing in the pipeline. And so there's this scramble. That's what I call this entrepreneurial roller coaster that starts. You're doing the work, and then there's nothing, and you scramble to get more work, and then you put your head back down. And in reality, that is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And so when I looked at, okay, if I have to touch business development every day, what does that look like for me? And how am I going to be willing to do it? And I'm just not the type of person who is going to cold call. I have had a job where I have done that before, and I'm just bad at it, and it's not authentic to me. And I think when you operate in a space that's authentic for you, it's natural, and they are naturally attracted to you. And so when I paid attention to the business development, I'm like, I'm not going to cold call. I'm not going to stalk on LinkedIn. I'm not going to spend every single night of my life networking. And in reality, I did that in my 20s. I'm not going to do that now. I have 3 children at home, so that's not where I want to spend all my time. But I want a successful business. So what I realized is that I could build a business based on referrals, which means if referrals just show up, right? And that I use that analogy. That's not how it works, but that's what it feels like. They just show up in my inbox with like, hey, Sally, you got to talk to Stacey. There's no extra work involved. As long as and there's a system, of course, that I have in place for my referrals, but I realize that works best for me. I'm not the type of person who's going to ask for referrals. I believe that if you're asking for referrals, you're doing it all wrong. And I realize that goes against like every piece of advice out there, but that's the success I've had and my clients have had when we've built their referral strategies. And so I figured out that if I could build a strategy around referrals, I could still do things that touch business development every day, and it would be easier to attract clients because they're going to be referred in versus me having to go out there and find them either cold or, through other means.
Yeah. Excellent. And the other one that, sorry, Drew, were you going to say something? Apologies.
Yeah, just going back to what you said there, Stacey. If you don't actually go out and actively ask for the referrals, and you said that if someone's doing that, you think they're doing it wrong, what do you do instead?
Yeah, so a great question. So here's what I always like to tell folks. Referrals come from relationships, right? And this is not new to me. This has been said for generations that people do business with people that they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
So I believe that if you develop relationships with people and they understand what you do and they are, either a champion of yours because you've worked with them, they're like a client and they know the work that you do and you do great work, they naturally create that buzz and they will naturally talk about you and naturally send people your way. And then also, when you're looking at that referral, it's a strategy. And I have what I call my 3 platinum principles to actually creating a strategy that can be executed on in anyone's business. And one of the processes that I take my clients through is like, let's automate this in your business. And when I say automate, I don't mean let's just send a newsletter out every month and there you have your touch point. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. It looks different because we're trying to build relationships. And so when I look at those 3 platinum principles, I tell people when you're building a relationship with folks to where that they will understand what you do and that they will naturally send referrals to you. So you're not constantly having to ask every time. Is that at the end of the day, the 3 things that you have to do is you have to make that relationship all about them. You have to make that relationship authentic to you. And I can give you examples kind of what these 3 mean, but it's make it all about them, make it authentic to you. And then the third one is to stay top of mind. And that's where my system kind of comes into place. My strategy comes into place is how do you stay top of mind where it's not just let me send you a send out card every single month or let me schedule a lunch with you every single month because people are busy and they don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Or, let me send you a newsletter that's got all these great things happening for me. Because again, that's about me and that violates platinum principle number 1, which is make it all about them. And truly, when I walk people through this process, or whether they're doing it live with me coaching or they're on my online program, they're like, it's so simple, it's kind of scary that I hadn't thought about it before. And I was like, I just don't believe it's ever been broken down in this way before. And when people hear it, they're like, oh my gosh, I get it. And then they go out and they have success with it, which of course then means it's validated and it works.
Yeah. Excellent. We've got so many. I do want to ask you. We've got so many questions, Stacey. But there are a few things that you've just said there. I don't know. Appreciate if you could share. You talked about bulletproof yourself emotionally. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So here's the thing. You guys know you have very successful businesses, and when you think about that business, it's hard, right? I mean, when you think about getting up every day and doing it, we're doing what we love and we're lucky. We're like, I think we consider ourselves the lucky few that get up every day and do what we love. I mean, I fundamentally absolutely love Mondays.
Yeah.
Most of my clients don't. Most of my friends don't. And I fundamentally love my Mondays. I love every day of the week. But when I think about the business and I think about running a business, and that there are a lot of entrepreneurs, but most people we know, they don't always have the guts to go out there and do a business. Keeping yourself focused on why you're doing what you're doing and the fact that you believe in yourself that you can do it. And I tell folks, I would never have thought that I needed to be emotionally bulletproof until I allowed someone to say something to me a couple years into my business that completely was like I wouldn't say derailed me, but it was the crack. And it's because the advice I was given was I was going for an award here in Charlotte. We have lots of awards for business owners. And so I was going for an award. And after I went to a session on how to apply for the award, someone that I knew, well-meaning, I'm sure if she knew that this was the outcome of what she said to me, she would have taken it back in a heartbeat. But she came up to me and she was trying to prepare me for the fact that maybe I wouldn't win, which is legitimate. I'll take all kinds of feedback. And so she said, Stacey, you're a mom, you've got young children, you're really building a lifestyle business. And just so you know, lifestyle businesses, they don't win awards. And never before that moment had I thought of myself building a lifestyle business. I was building a business to be successful, to make money, and to do things that I love to do and to help people. I had full intentions of being successful. But to be perfectly honest, she said it, and I'm quite sure at that moment my daughter was probably just born, so I wasn't sleeping very well.
Yeah.
And I was tired, and I just, unfortunately, and I'm I could kick myself now, I bought it. When she said, you're not going to win this award, you're a lifestyle business, it's okay, that then manifested itself in my mind, and shame on me for allowing it to be, if I don't want a business development at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I want to go do laundry, that's okay, I'm building a lifestyle business, right? But in reality, no. And it took the business failing for me to realize, absolutely not, I will never give away my belief in myself to somebody else's, truly she meant it to be well-meaning, but in reality, it was the first crack that kind of changed directions in my behavior of how I treated my business. And so I didn't protect my mindset. I wasn't emotionally bulletproof.
Yeah, good example. I think it's Les Brown that says, other people's opinion of you are none of your damn business, which I think is just...
Yes, it's perfect.
Yeah. Excellent.
And Stacey, when your business sort of went through failure, how did you? I mean, you talked about the sort of one of the biggest things that it hits is your ego. How did you pick yourself up from your business failing? How did you sort of go through that and then have the confidence to go out and start again?
Great question. So first thing I did was I masked it. I acted like it didn't happen, and so that only prolonged me actually facing it. So when the business was starting to sputter and I wasn't making any money, I was finishing up my master's degree, and my husband is the biggest supporter that I have. He is a fantastic husband. And so he would never say to me, you need to go get a job. So he, and when people say, they're like, oh, it's probably a conversation you guys had and you just determined you need to go get a job. And, and he would have continued for as long as possible if I would have allowed it. But I just knew that, I need to go get a job. And so the decision I made to go get a job on any interview that I was, that I went on, it wasn't that my business was failing. It was that this is a great opportunity. I'd be crazy not to consider it. And I think that's the message we tell ourselves when we're not trying to tell someone sitting across the table, hey, guess what? I'm a failure in this area of my life. It does not. My failure does not define me at all anymore. But it is a swift kick in the hiney when I need it, when I start getting off course. So I think that in reality, I just masked it. Excuse me. And so in masking it, it took me longer to actually say, you know what, this is what happened, and it doesn't define me, and it's not who I am, and I'm not a failure in general. I just had this experience, and I've learned so much from it. So after I left, I didn't talk about it while I had my corporate job as the chief talent officer. When I left that job and went back out on my own, I finally decided I needed to start talking about it. It wasn't fair if I wasn't willing to talk about it. And I remember the first time I said my first business failed, I was sitting in a room with other coaches, the International Coaching Federation. I was presenting to the local Charlotte chapter on, how to build a successful coaching practice. And I literally said the words, my business failed. And then I heard myself say it like 7 more times. And I was like, okay, they have to be tired of hearing it. But it was that moment that it was for me. It was just like, you know what? Just put it out there. It failed. And then the next time I talked about it on a large scale, I was asked by the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce, to serve on a panel of successful young professionals and to talk about our businesses. And I was the entrepreneur on the panel. And they had others that were on the panel, like the corporate person and things. And I said, and that was like 250 people that they had of these young professionals in the room. And I talked about it there. And it was at that moment I talked about it with anybody who would listen from that point forward, because I realized that people really do resonate more with your struggles than they do with your successes. And I've realized with my failure, I have valuable information now to share. And what's fascinating I find in my coaching practices is that I can see it. I can see it in my clients' eyes. I'm like, I know where you're headed. It is not pretty. We've got to change course, or you're going to end up where I was.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Renegade Recruiter Unleashed podcast. For show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to www.therenegaderecruiter.com.
Some great learnings there. Absolutely, yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with Stacey. And and just the brutal honesty.
Right. Absolutely.
Just fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Stacey, one thing you mentioned sort of a while back is you said that your friend saying to you that you were actually building a lifestyle business, and you said that at the time you let it sort of get to you, and that was the first crack in your business failing. Did you failure doesn't happen overnight? So did you notice that your business was on the path to failure as it was happening, or was it sort of was it a sudden realization?
No, so I knew. I'd known I could watch it happening. And so as I was watching it happening, I started my business at the end of 2008. And some people would say, when I say, I had a business failure, they'd be like, well, of course you did. You started your business in the middle of right after the recession began. But no, I mean, my first client came to me and said, I was working in a partnership in another company, and I had this client, and they came to me and they said, you're really good at this, but you should go out on your own. And I was like, well, will you be my client? They're like, of course, we'll take the work that we do with you. And that's where that first almost 6-figure contract came from. And I was set. And 2009 was an incredible year for my business. But here's what I did. I focused a lot on credibility building. So I was doing my own generational research. I was writing white papers. I was being interviewed by the Bloomberg News. I was in different radio shows. I was ghostwriting, or not ghostwriting, I was writing articles for publications. I was building my credibility. I had this great client. I wasn't focused on business development. And then I looked up, and that 2009 was a great year. 2010 was a great year because I had that client. I picked up little clients here and there because of my relationship with that first client. And then when that contract ended in 2010, I did what most business owners do. I looked up and I was like, wait, there's no business in the pipeline. What am I going to do? And here's the thing, selling is not my problem. That is something that I come from a long line of entrepreneurs and salespeople. And so that ability, and not that I think it's necessarily born, I think you can develop it. It's just something I had developed, and I think I had a knack for it. So selling wasn't the issue. The fact was I wasn't doing any of it. I wasn't focused on any of it. And so when I looked up, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to change something here. So I spent the next year bringing in business, and I brought in more clients than I ever had, obviously, with the previous couple of years. But what I wasn't paying attention to is I was being nickeled and dimed, and what I was doing was becoming more commoditized. And so at that moment, and I couldn't compete on that level. And my business was just not structured to. And so had I had that conversation earlier with myself, I think I probably could have righted the ship. But I was working with a coach because I think, and you guys know this as well, I think everybody should have a coach. So I had a business coach at the time, and I remember a very valuable conversation she and I had together. And she said, we were on one of our coaching calls, and she goes, and I don't know why she asked it. All of a sudden she said, Stacey, where are you sitting right now? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, no, where are you sitting? And I was like, I'm at my kitchen counter. And she was like, why aren't you in your office? And I was like, and literally I'd never said these words before. And I said, I hate it in there. And she was like, what do you mean? You need a new coat of paint? You don't like the color? Or you don't like the layout of the room, or what? And it was at that moment I had to recognize that I was falling out of love with my business. And I wasn't doing anything to change it. And so after another year or two of that, finally it came time to I had to hang it up. And I knew it, and I look back and I knew it. I didn't want to admit it all the time. I wouldn't admit it in the moment. But I knew it, my business, I was being commoditized. I could bring in business, but they were nickeling and diming me. My business was becoming commoditized. And at the end of the day, I didn't even want the phone to ring because I was like, oh, who's going to be on the other end? And what's this going to look like? And that was the moment I realized, there's more things happening at that moment, but I was like, this isn't right for me anymore, which is crazy because you get me on a stage to talk about the things that I was an expert in back then, employee engagement or generational diversity, and you would think that, I can talk to anybody about that stuff. I still can to this day, and people would be like, but you're so passionate about it. I'm like, yeah, well, passionate for something that I'm good from a technical perspective doesn't necessarily mean that I'm passionate about running a business around it. And that was a difference with this business, as I wanted something I was passionate about, but I was passionate about running a business with.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, yeah. And if you look at, here we are today, what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that you see other people make, business people make?
So, I would say a lot of times they don't know where they're going. Like, they have this business, and it doesn't matter to me sometimes if I'm working with a multi-million-dollar client or I'm working with a client just trying to hit, the six-figure mark. It doesn't matter. They don't always know where they're going and the why behind where they're going. And don't get me wrong, everybody has that kind of that vision of how much revenue do I want to make and how many clients do I need to make that revenue. Most people know that. I have a lot of businesses that come to me early on that don't know any of that information. And so we have to unpack like their revenue funnel and what it looks like and who their clients are. But they just don't know the why behind where they're going. And I always encourage my clients to have a BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah.
Like all the way up. So when I think about my BHAG, and I share this with my clients, and they all think I'm crazy. And that's fine. A BHAG is supposed to be almost so impossible, it can't happen. But you're going to work really hard to make it happen. And so when I think about my BHAG, Harvard Business Review reported, this may have been a couple years ago now, that there are, I think it was 71.1 million solopreneurs in the world. And that is just a marketplace, because I'm a solopreneur. Both my businesses was a solopreneur. That is just a business that, it was 171. There's 171 million solopreneurs out there. Sorry, my statistic was wrong. 171 million solopreneurs out there. I want to, over the next 10 years, I want to help 10% of that, 1.7 million.
Okay.
And most people are like, that's a crazy number. And that doesn't mean I'm going to sell something to all those people, but I want them, using my resources, seeing my videos, whatever it is, following my blog. But I know where I'm going. Like, I know what that looks like out there. I know how to help those folks. And that's one of the things I see in my clients is that they just don't know the why behind where they're going. The other thing is that they know who their ideal client is. I mean, I really think that's taught to death, as it should be. It's really important to understand who your ideal client is. But what you really need to know to be able to build a business is to understand what are the pain points.
Yeah.
What are the problems that ideal client has? And that's what you speak to in terms of how you're going to build your business. And then, and as I've mentioned before, it's that ability to scale. I help a lot of clients pull the trigger on hiring the first or the fifth employee, and we look at it as, I'm working with a CPA that's in Massachusetts right now, and he was like, I really need to hire somebody else. And he's been in business longer, to be honest. He's been in business longer than I've been in business as a business coach. And I asked the question, I was like, have you forecasted out what you're going to make between now and the end of the year based on your kind of projections and what you have that is coming in? Like, have you forecasted out the revenue you're going to have, the expenses you're going to have, and then understanding what gap you would need to fill to bring somebody on? Simple question, right? And he was like, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, sometimes we just need to know our numbers, right? For us to be able to say, I can pull this trigger. Like, don't ever go off your gut. I mean, your gut's a wonderful thing. It should guide you. But sometimes when we're making decisions, we need to look at what the business is telling us and then make that decision from that perspective.
Yeah. And I think, just on what you said there, Stacey, I think that's one of the biggest benefits of having a coach or a mastermind group is that although... yeah, we can sit here and talk about it, and it's almost like obvious. Why didn't he look at that? But sometimes when you're too close to the business and you're working in the business, you don't see the obvious things.
Yes, working on the business is one thing I think most business owners don't do well or enough of.
Yeah, really good point. Excellent. And you talked earlier about referrals. Is that your main route to market?
So, as a coach, and I absolutely love what I do as a coach, and I don't think I'll ever stop that face-to-face or that phone-based coaching that I do. But you do get to a place, and most coaches, if you get into business, you should know this. If you don't do something different, you're going to be trading dollars for hours.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that you shouldn't raise your rates and charge what you're worth and make good money that way. But if you want to truly, in my opinion, make the business where you can help more people, but also have the ability to create that lifestyle for yourself that you want and that financial security that you want for your family and yourself, is that you really need something that can be widespread. And that for me is my online program that's referral marketing. So I take what I teach my clients and I package it up and put it into programs online where I can help someone in the UK, someone in Seattle, someone in India. It doesn't matter. Anybody can access that. They don't have to access me live. But they can access the program. And the first one that I launched is my Growth by Referrals program. And that is because that's the one topic I think that we get so wrong nowadays. And it's the topic my clients ask me the most about. Mm-hmm. And so that was the first one that I picked to kind of have as an online course or online program for folks. And so you don't have to coach with me to get that. Like, that's available. Anybody can have access to that. But I found that that's the one I get really, really passionate about because I just think the information out there is lacking when it comes to that specific topic on referral marketing.
Yeah.
Okay. And Stacey, what's been the biggest breakthrough for you in your business over the past 12 months?
So I would say the biggest breakthrough for me would probably be making myself sit down and have the time to create the videos and create this course. And it's been launched almost over a year now. And so, or just a little under. And really knowing I could do it and then just making myself do it and really having now that online platform where people can go to learn, about how to make referrals and I can help more people. And I think that helped me with my BHAG, right? The more people I can help where they don't have to talk to me for an hour every day, right? Is my ability to help all the folks that I want to help that are out there that are in a business. And I should say this, that are in a business that can be built and sustained by referrals. The way that I teach it. So my referral course isn't for everyone, but if you're in what I call H to H sales, which is human to human, I don't care if it's B2B or B2C, it doesn't matter. I have clients in both. But if you're in H to H sales where people have to know, like, and trust you, and you become a resource for the people who do business with you, you are perfectly positioned to actually have a business completely sustained by referrals. And so I really feel like that creating that course has been a breakthrough for my business.
Excellent. And how do you market that?
So that is one of the things that I have the joy of and pleasure of learning. Every day it's something new with the online side. Because my business is almost 95 supported by referrals for my coaching practice. That the face-to-face or phone-based coaching that I do. And I'm typically on a wait list. Like right now, I had someone I met with and they're like, it's July, great, let's get started. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm on a wait list till October and November. And they're like, what? I want to get started now. And I'm like, so my business typically runs on a 3 to 4 month wait list. And so when you think about, and that's what it looks like to have a business sustained by referrals. And so when I think about other people being able to have a referral strategy within their business, the work that I do, people are uniquely positioned because they're in H to H or human to human sales. And I have found that my strategy works best for them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Good stuff. And what? Sorry, you go.
No, go, you can't, Drew. Go on.
I was going to say, Stacey, if you could name one book, so just one book that you've read that's had the biggest influence on your, I guess, entrepreneurial journey, what book will that be?
E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber.
Yeah.
I actually read it every other year, and I have my clients read it. Okay. And I just think that it shows folks how to run a business and make it so that the business doesn't become your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting that we get all our clients to read it, and I don't know, Drew, but I read it probably once every 2 years. But it's it's a question that I often get asked. Is there a book that you'd recommend? And it is one of the first books that we'd recommend is the E-Myth Revisited. So if you haven't heard of it, it's called the letter E, Myth, MYTH, Revisited, and it's by Michael Gerber, Gerber. But well worth reading for any business owner. And if you don't enjoy reading, or you're a bit busy to read, you can download it and listen to it on what's it called? Audible.com. My apologies, which is owned by Amazon. But yeah, I think in my humble opinion, I think every business owner should read that book.
I took a number of my clients on a retreat last year. It was called a Refocus and Recharge Retreat, and their homework prior to coming on that business retreat to work on their business for 2 days, not in their business, was to actually read the book E-Myth Revisited. I do, to your point, think it's a great book that everybody should read. Maybe not every year once you've read it, but definitely should be a refresher.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the book. And who's been the biggest influence on your business journey, Stacey?
I would say there's not one particular person, but I would say when you look at my background, it's my family collectively, because I come from a sea of entrepreneurs. When you look at my family, like we sit around the table at Thanksgiving or at Christmas, and you've got, my parents and aunts and uncles and my brother and, cousins, and I'm looking at everyone around the table. At least every person, or then every other person, is an entrepreneur. And so that lifestyle and that sense of purpose kind of was always a part of me. My grandmother started restaurants. And actually, I'm originally from South Carolina, even though I live in Charlotte now. And so my grandmother started restaurants, and she had 5 at one point, and I grew up working in them. And now my brother had a restaurant, and now he's bought one of my grandmother's restaurants. My uncle has some restaurants. My father is an author, a fiction author. My husband happens to own a restaurant and a food truck. I now have another uncle who runs a timeshare company along the coast in South Carolina, and has properties all over that he manages. He has a resort management company. And I sit at a table, and this is what we talk about, right? Yeah. These are the things, other than like catching up on how the kids are and things like that. Like we talk about business. I mean, we talk about how's your business, like what are you doing different? And so I think that, and I'll be honest, as an entrepreneur, I fit very well into my family, but most of them cannot put their arms around what I do, particularly when I start talking about the online side of my business versus the face-to-face coaching they definitely get. But I have found when I sit around the table and we have conversations with them, there is always something to take away from those conversations, regardless of which family member I'm talking to. And I think that has been really, really impactful for my life, particularly with my grandmother, because she did. I mean, she is a bull in a china shop, and she having those 5 restaurants, and her my step grandfather, her husband at the time, was a long haul truck driver, and she ran those restaurants and was very successful with all of them. Just watching that grit and that determination, and then seeing that in my my family, my brother, and my husband, and seeing, of course, in my aunts and uncles and my cousins, that's been a very big impact on me.
Yeah.
And again, if you had to pick sort of the best piece of advice that one of your family members have given you, what would that be?
Don't own a restaurant. So, coming from a family of restaurateurs, working in one myself, my very first nickname was Mo Tea. I would like more tea, but in South Carolina, so it was Mo Tea. I was the Mo Tea girl. But coming from a family of restaurant owners, and marrying a man who decided he wanted to own a restaurant, which was never in my plan. I thought I couldn't run away fast enough from that world. I can say this because I come from that background. Restaurant people are crazy. Like, there's just a little bit of crazy in them to want to run a restaurant. And I think that, running a restaurant is wonderful. And I think everybody should work in the service industry when they're young to get a sense of hard work, like truly labor intensive hard work, like carrying trays of food and trays of drinks, I was a busboy at one point too. Like, I would say that work environment really taught me the value of hard work. And so that's probably one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, was that ability that if you want to own a business, it's going to be hard work. And I say that all the time to my clients. They sit down, they're like, God, this is so hard. I'm like, did anyone ever tell you owning a business was going to be easy? It should be awesome. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
And so I think that just that overall best piece of advice was just like, this is going to be hard work. Do it because you love it. Any job's going to be hard work on some level, right? Do it because you love it. Hopefully you're good at it. And, you know, that grit and determination is just so important for that staying power.
Yeah. Excellent. So, excellent. Fantastic. I've got to say, Stacey, really enjoyed this. You shared some real gems with us. Thank you so much indeed. Where can our listeners go to find out more about you, who you are, and you know, and to reach out to you?
Absolutely. So they can go to Growth by Referrals, and that's referrals with an S. So growthbyreferrals.com. And if they go /Edwards, so growthbyreferrals.com /Edwards, I will have on there for them on that page the 3 secrets learned from business failure we talked about earlier. It's a PDF. They can download it. I also have another free gift called 4 Reasons You Don't Get Referrals and What to Do About It. And they can learn more about me and my programs just on that website. But that specific page, just for your listeners, just for you guys giving me some time to spend my morning with you, your afternoon, but my morning, I'd love to give those couple of free items to your listeners just to kind of have some true value that they can walk away with an understanding, you know, from a business failure perspective and then growing a business by referrals.
That's very kind of you, Stacey. Stacey, would you mind just repeating that again, please? That address.
So growthbyreferrals.com /Edwards.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you, Stacey, and much appreciated giving those free gifts. Really is.
My pleasure.
Stacey, again, thank you so much indeed. This is Terry Edwards, Renegade Recruiter, and Drew, thank you as well. Blessed to have you both on the call. Really appreciated. Take care, take action, and be relentless.